This is Spanish for Family and Community Vocab 11 through 15. Father-in-law is suegro. When you guys get married, your spouse's dad will be your father-in-law. And when you guys get married, your spouse's mother will be your mother-in-law. Now, father-in-law is suegro and mother-in-law is suegra. How are we going to remember that? Well, let's say you really love your father-in-law. He's a great guy. You hunt together, you fish together, you do sports together. He's a great guy. But your wife is really getting on your nerves. She always yells and she always complains. So you go to your father-in-law. Oh, by the way, your wife's name is Sue. You go to your father-in-law and you say, hey, can I ask you a question? When Sue was growing up, did she yell and complain a lot? So you go to your father-in-law and say, hey, when my wife Sue was growing up, did she yell and complain a lot? And he says, yep. Now, you don't want to divorce her because you enjoy hanging out with your father-in-law. Kind of a weird way to remember that suegro's father-in-law, sorry. But it makes sense. It's suegro's father-in-law, suegra is mother-in-law. Now, to govern or to rule over is regir. All right. If you're going to govern someone or rule over someone, you can't be too rigid. Everybody say rigid. You have to be flexible if you're going to govern. Or everybody say regime. Regime is how a group governs, like the Nazi regime or a socialist regime or a military regime. So the regime was really strict as they ruled over the country. So regir is to govern or to rule over. Now the hard phrase on this list is to have just. Everybody say acabar de. Acabar de. Now, how are we going to remember that? Visualize you go and watch the new Star Wars movie, just as an example. And as you leave the theater, it starts to rain. And somebody says, hey, quick, call a cab. Makes sense. You're standing in the rain. Hey, quick, call a cab. And you smile and say, don't worry, guys. I have just called a cab. I have just called a, see the letter A, cab. So acabar de means to have just. Now, I have just is acabo de, like I have just eaten, acabo de comer. We have just eaten, acabamos de comer. Now, Mr. Earl, I don't understand. Comer is to eat. It's I have just eaten. Well, this is a big grammatical point in this lesson. It's complicated, but here I go. Spanish people don't like to change two verbs. They like to change the first one and leave the second one as the infinitive. Example, how do you say I have to eat? Tengo que comer. Tengo changes, comer doesn't. Or I like to eat. Me gusta comer. Me gusta, the first verb changes, the second one doesn't. It stays as the infinitive. So, I have just eaten is acabo de comer. All right, let's take time for a post quiz. I'm going to cover up the Spanish. I'd like you to take just a moment, look at the English, and give the Spanish equivalents. This has been Spanish for Family and Community 11 through 15.